I probably could have timed that a lot better. Anyway, hey, it's time, right? That time once a week that am I coming through clear? I don't know. Anyway, it's that time once a week where we do our thing. It's time for late night coffee talk, and I am here for it. It has been a pretty exhausting week on the independence front, but in a good way. I mean, I'm not saying that in a bad way, but we'll talk about that here in a minute. Let me get all the housekeeping out of the way first. Welcome back to Late Night Coffee Talk. For you first timers, I'm Daniel Miller, president of the Texas Nationalist movement. And this is that time once a week where I take a break from what I'm doing, working on independence, come fire up the camera, and I take your questions. We basically spend the next hour having a conversation. Most will be driven by your questions. Although here, as of late, I've had a lot to say on my own. So I would suggest getting your questions in rather quickly. Let me tell you how you can do that. First and foremost, you can get your question to us via email. You can send an email to coffeetalk@thetnm.org. That's a good way to do it. But alternatively, if you're watching on YouTube, you can drop your question right in the chat. And while you're there, be sure to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can always be notified when we go live or post new videos. And of course, on YouTube, super chats are available. So if you would like to make a contribution to help keep us, advancing Texas independence, producing more content, doing more of the things that many of you are asking for, then feel free to use the super chat, or you could go and do a channel membership. I talked about that. I'll talk about that here again in a bit, but thank you to those of you who have done it. If you'd like to submit your question on Facebook, all you got to do is drop it in the comments on the video where you're watching on Facebook. Be sure to like and share and, do all the cool Facebook things. If you're watching on X, if you're watching us on X, as opposed to the feud between Elon Musk and Donald Trump, that is, you can drop your questions in the chat and be sure to share wherever you're watching this. Share with other people. Let them know that we're doing this because, look, I'm here. I'm here to talk to you about whatever you want to talk about. If you have questions about Texas, about the TNM, about Texas politics, the world in general, I mean, you guys have not been bashful as of late asking personal questions either. And if you've noticed, I have answered them. This is, I can't even remember. I looked the other day, and this is like the 100 and some odd episode of this thing that we've done, this late night coffee talk, not including its previous incarnation of office hours or the previous incarnation of Texas perspective. So, I'm here. I am at your beck and call. And I do believe here's going to be the challenge tonight, my friends, is I'm going to have to monitor the chat. So, and get these things queued up. So just bear with me. If I happen to scoot over your question tonight, that's on me. But Kara's doing a thing. Got the grandbaby, right? Just hanging out with the grandkids. So cannot fault her for that. But that does mean, unfortunately, I'm running solo, so there may be some pauses as I look for your questions. Really quickly, before we get jumped off, I want to thank, I talked about this last week before we kicked off. We had the issue with the channel memberships and people being notified about when we post videos and go live. And I want to do that again, if you don't mind. So, one of the things here, when I talk about on YouTube, liking and subscribing, right? Obviously like it, but if you want to subscribe to our channel, you just go to our channel. So if you're watching right now, you see our channel name, Texas Nat MOV. Been that since we started one up many, many years ago. But be sure to subscribe. And when I say hit the notification bell, it means do the drop down and hit the all. And what that allegedly does is send you a notification when we post a new video or when we go live. And that makes a huge, huge difference. Additionally, even after last week, still getting a lot of questions about, hey, what is this I hear about YouTube channel memberships? Well, if you'll notice there on the screen where the red arrow is pointing, mine says see perks. That's because I am a channel member along with other people, and yours should say something about membership. I can't even remember because I did it a while back, but you'll see the button. Click it, and it's like $3, right? I mean, it's no big deal. But I want to go ahead and give a big thank you shout out to these YouTube channel members. I'm not going to shout myself out, even though my name is on there. That's just the way it is. But after last week, we picked up some more. So what you guys are telling us is that you want us to continue to produce content over here, and we are doing that. Our last two Texas News podcasts have been phenomenal. We got some additional fantastic podcasts with guests coming up. On the Texas News podcast. We've got some additional content in production right now. So it's we're listening and we're doing what you're saying, which is meeting you where you're at. Now, granted, I know that I'm probably about to get a bunch of emails about why aren't you doing this on Rumble? And my answer to you is the same as it was when we first talked about this, which is when Rumble kind of gets their stuff together where this is concerned for people like us. We're not Charlie Kirk. We're not Tim Pool. That's not what we do. When they make it to where it's easier for us and can do whatever, like right now, YouTube's paying us bonuses for people if you sign up for a membership with us. So they're matching, I think, up to the first, was it 200 members or something like that? I mean, it's something crazy. So definitely why we're encouraging it, because we want to be able to continue to provide content that you want to see. So thank you guys so much for that. And look at that. There we go. Somebody has already jumped up. Eric, thank you so much for your super chat. Really, really do appreciate it. And they say that there is a feature, if you're watching on YouTube, where you can actually gift channel memberships to other people. Basically, it just kind of takes people on the live stream. So let's say we have, like ours is like $2.99. Let's say you do $10, right? It'll go and it'll gift out 3 memberships to people that are watching the live stream for a month. It's pretty cool. So, but anyway, Eric, thank you so much for that, and really, really do appreciate it. Okay, so I'm going to go through here and just really quickly. Look at that. Right out the gate. Brand new channel membership. Thank you so much. Really do appreciate that. Thank you. See, easy peasy, right? That's how that works out. So thank you for that. And welcome. You'll be on the screen next week as well. So thank you for that. Let's go through. Hey, we've got some great messages from folks here. All right. Yeah, be sure to get those questions in. Holy smoke. Thank you to Ron for gifting 10 channel memberships out there. So 10 of you just became members of the channel because of the channel member Ron Rafoon. So Ron, thank you so much for that. That is that's so cool. See, somebody tested it out. It obviously works. So thanks for doing that, Ron. Okay, let's do this. Let's get down to some of the things we want to talk about tonight. I mean, obviously, as we slide into this, I think everyone is still, today is the 5th. We're 3 days out. So the 2nd is when the legislature gavelled out, and I got to tell you, given the way that this legislative session was, it felt like a big relief, did it not? I mean, it kind of felt like a really, really big relief. I will say that I have talked to legislators, some at the tail end, but I've been asked a lot by people, hey, have you been visiting with these guys? I mean, what's their sentiment, all this? And I can tell you that after doing this for many, many sessions, I learned a long time ago that it's best, particularly with a session like there hasn't, in my estimation, there hasn't been one like it, right? It's bad. But even when it was close to this bad, what I have learned is it's best to give them a little space right after the session, because they still have to process just what happened. I mean, it's one thing for a lot of us, and I sat in on a space on X last night. If you don't know what those are, go check it out. They're basically big audio chat rooms. I mean, that's kind of what it turns into. But anyway, I sat in one last night while I was working on some things. I love to put those on in the background. And I heard some of the armchair quarterbacking that's going on, right? I mean, and literally, like, I did not disagree with what the guy was saying, which was essentially he was making the statement that you don't send reps up there to abstain from votes. They need to vote yes or they need to vote no. And I'm thinking from that standpoint, that sounds really good in theory, right? But that just tells me that that person, however well intentioned, and I mean this is not a slight by any stretch of the imagination. It's just they don't get what's happening down there, and how for a lot of those guys it's like drinking out of a fire hose. Now that's a very small part. I mean, there's a lot of go along to get along, but I would honestly rather have a rep abstain from a vote on an issue that has been forced down their throat that they don't know about. The congressional situation where you're supposed to have they're supposed to have a rule where you're supposed to have a bill laid out 72 hours ahead of time so you at least have time to read it. That's not what's happening down there in the Texas House a lot of times, particularly when they have a bill and it goes through committee and then they'll do a floor substitute. I mean, they'll substitute the language. And so you essentially have a bill that's been laid out in front of you. You've had almost no time to read and review. And boom, there's the problem. I mean, so what are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to just kind of vote on faith? So there's a lot, right? Let me do that too. So thank you, Lee Jacobson. Thank you very much for your contribution tonight. You guys, man, you guys are knocking it out of the park tonight. Wow. And thank you to Carrie. That is so fantastic. Thank you so much. Guys, I don't know if you feel it or not, but it feels like there's a shift, sort of a shift in the mood in the way things are going. But Carrie, thank you so much, and Lee, thank you all so much for supporting this. But there's just as we come out of this legislative session, I will tell you that I've heard from some of the legislators a little bit, but I haven't really made the phone calls to have the conversations to just unpack it because they need time to process. But I will tell you what I have heard is I've spoken with some people that are grassroots activists, leaders in grassroots movements, and there is a certain kind of demoralization that's taken place because of what happened in the Texas legislature. They're demoralized. Now, if you go back 2 or 3 episodes of Late Night Coffee Talk, you will recall I talked about this very thing. The goal of the establishment was to divide and demoralize, and I can hear some of that. And I see it. I made a post on X a moment ago, just a reminder while everybody's talking about this feud between Elon Musk and Donald Trump, a reminder that the federal system is broken. I mean, that bill, the one big beautiful bill, is terrible. We've always said that the federal debt is unsustainable. It's fiscal child abuse. And I don't know why so many people are wanting to give a pass to Donald Trump because he's wanting to expand that debt. I get there may be a plan or whatever, but the bottom line is you cannot claw your way out of $37 trillion worth of debt by piling another $5 trillion on top of it. Okay, that's just the reality of it. But while this feud's going on, I posted that this was a reminder that we have said all along the federal government is unfixable. You cannot fix that system. And just like on Q, you had people come, make comments on it. Well, our government in Austin's not any better. Well, that's exactly right. Okay, so how do you address this? Well, it's what we've said for years. All roads to Texas independence lead through the Texas legislature. If you want to move Texas toward independence, if you want Texas to have a referendum on independence, if you want Texas to be independent, then, if those roads lead to the legislature and the legislature is dysfunctional, what do you have to do? And people say, well, how are we going to do that? Well, you're going to do it the way that you're supposed to do it, right? Sitting on the couch complaining is not going to cut it, right? I had a conversation with some people after the November election who were Democrats, right? So we strike up this conversation, and Donald Trump gets elected, and I mean, they're wringing their hands and all this kind of stuff. And so, rather than pile on and have joy at their misery that the Maoist, farm vegetable didn't get elected, I just asked a question. I said, well, what did you do? Like, how did you help your candidate? Did you block walk? Did you knock doors? Did you put out a campaign sign? Did you make phone calls? Did you volunteer for a campaign? I mean, tell me what the sum total of your activity was leading up to that vote. Well, we voted. Oh, okay. Well, congratulations. I mean, you you basically just did something that the feds let illegal immigrants do, right? I mean, so you have literally done the minimum. You went and you got your participation ribbon, your I voted sticker, and we need that, right? But we need to be very conscious about, if you want to see the legislature change and your legislator is not representing you, then you have to move heaven and earth to change out that legislator. I can't tell you how many groups I've spoken to over the years, and they're saying it's always the same thing. Our guy doesn't listen to us, or she doesn't vote. Okay, well, look, if your person doesn't represent you, then they can't be allowed to represent you. But you're not going to unseat an incumbent with wishes and whines. You have to do things. You have to set aside money that you can donate to the candidate of your choice. You have to go volunteer for that campaign, which is going to put you into a position where you're going to have to knock a door or make a phone call or talk to your neighbors or talk to your friends, right? Or, whatever skills you can offer to the overall organized effort. I heard a story the other day about a little lady that she didn't think she had any skills. And she was asked what she likes to do. She says, I like to bake cookies. He said, okay, bake cookies for the volunteers. So, these are things that have to get done. So I think we're going to have to make absolutely sure that, folks, if you are, if you're going to, sorry, remember me, I'm over here trying to monitor these chats as well. It's not going to work out for me. I'm going to be so distracted. So if I miss it, my apologies now. But the bottom line is, look, if we're going to see the change, if we're going to go down, it's time for me to break out the graphic. Hey, by the way, if you're on here and were gifted one of those memberships by Ron, be sure to sound off in the chat and tell him thank you. But I'm going to bring the slide up again, right? There's the Texit process. Here's the status quo on the left. And we're moving through the Texit process to where we can become politically, culturally, economically independent and self-governing. That's the Texit process, okay? And so if you've got an impediment in that process, something that is pushing back against that process, aka the legislature, right? The government here in Texas, if you don't like the shape of that, the good news is you have every opportunity to do something about that. You can't knock out the Nancy Pelosi's of the world, or any of those other guys in Washington, D.C., the Chuck Schumers. You got no say over that, right? That Washington cake is baked. But what you have in your district right now is you have one rep and you have one senator. And you can effectively change the way that Texas is governed. You can put somebody else in there. And if you think that's not the case, understand in the last election cycle, the incumbents got the crap walloped out of them. Now, granted, we probably could have used, there were about 15 or 20 more that should have been replaced. And then this session would have been very different. But the good news is that even under these circumstances, the TNM made progress toward political, cultural, and economic independence, especially on the economic independence front. And if we can do that under these circumstances, what happens all of a sudden if we get to send 10 or 15 more reps and we pick up some senators and knock out some of the folks that are in the Senate that have been obstructionists to our, it's really terrible to have to make it sound like this way, but to our independence agenda. I mean, calling it an independence agenda sounds nefarious, but I mean, literally, they take an oath to this thing, right? Article 1, Section 2, they take an oath to the Texas Constitution. Article 1, Section 1 says Texas is a free and independent state. Article 1, Section 2 says that the people have at all times the inalienable right to alter, reform, abolish their government such manner as they may think expedient. It's what they say. They take an oath to it, but they ignore that oath, which is reason enough to work absolutely against every single one of them that does not adhere to that oath. Okay, let us go right over here. Like, here's a statement from Debbie. Debbie says, we knocked on 12,000 doors in our county. We met our goal. See, that's what you got to do. I mean, I told you guys before, I'm a tech consultant. So I put food on the table. So I pay for everything, right? So I have a house and electricity and things of that nature. And one of my clients is a candidate. And I've been through the process more times than I can count, but I'm watching that campaign spin up, and I'm just, I'm kind of feeling that sort of thing again. Like, there are some phenomenal opportunities here with as much angst and frustration as people have. Look, if we, like I said, I mean, I hate to be this way, but if we made progress under these circumstances where you had a significant portion of the supporters out there just so demoralized they went into neutral, right? Or you had some people that said, oh, Trump got elected, so we don't have to do anything, or we got a lot of time. Look, when you got time, you got to make hay while the sun shines, right? So, you have people that just, that for whatever reason, they just sort of kind of go in neutral. They get real low energy. Look, if we can make these sorts of gains and make this sort of progress under those circumstances, under the worst legislative session ever that I've seen, I mean, there's probably been terrible ones. But as far as the ones I participated in, the ones TNM's participated in, this is by far the worst. And we still got things done. Guys, I can remember when we didn't get anything. I mean, literally nothing, absolutely nothing through the legislature. I mean, less than nothing, right? I mean, it was just, I can remember those days. And so, when we can come out of a session as bad as the battlefield was and say that we got, we've made progress in our mission, that's not a bad situation at all. But it could be so much better. And it's only going to get better if we amp it up and get the job done. We're going to have a lot of things. I don't know who put the little surprise face up there, but that's funny. That made me laugh. Okay, a reminder, you can get your questions in, drop them in chat on YouTube, on the comments on Facebook, or on the chat on the X video, or you can email them to right there at the bottom of the screen right now, coffeetalk@vtnm.org. Get your questions in, and I'm going to go ahead and take one from email real quick. Okay, this is from Manuel. And he says, good afternoon. Hope all is well. My question and or suggestion is, all citizens registered must have their own TNM identity card or passport, which is fully compliant of the United States government, so that each and every citizen were proud to carry it in their wallet. Okay. That does not sound like a question. But having a passport is one of the benefits of being a self-governing independent nation. I'm just going to tell you, I'm already priming the pump here, folks. Look at that. I'm already priming the pump. You can't see it because it's too dark. There it is. There you go. How cool is that, right? That's not even one of those little souvenir ones that you get at the gift shop at the Capitol. Anyway, thank you for the question. There was not a question mark in it. I did not see one. Okay, here we go. Here's one. Came in via chat. Brenda says, I would like to hear what's the latest on the transactional gold bill. It's, from my understanding, yes, and I haven't checked today, but I believe it's still waiting on the governor's signature. But it is done, right? I mean, it's changed a little bit, but it's done. It's there. So we're going to have the ability very soon to have what is effectively a Texas currency. I mean, that's what's going to happen. And what that means is that we're not going to have to be subjected to that question over and over again about what's Texas going to do about a currency, because essentially that's where it is. Now, from my understanding, as I looked at the Senate committee substitute that made it back over to the House, that basically the version that's going to go to the governor's desk, is it authorizes the comptroller to go in and establish this system. Now, my understanding was, and I had some conversations about this with some of the key folks ahead of this session, was that it was already authorized in the original legislation that authorized the Texas Gold Depository. Okay, so that's several sessions back. And that was my understanding. But that being said, it was fuzzy. It was nebulous. The comptroller effectively never did it. So this one establishes some guidelines for that. It kind of clears up some of the fuzziness, sets some timetables, which is what we did not have originally back in the day for the gold depository bill. And so, it's going to take a little spin up time. Comptroller's office got to add more employees. They've got to go do their research. Good news is there's private sector companies that effectively already do this, that my guess is will wind up getting contracted out to design and deploy the system for making this happen. But we're very rapidly in terms of governmental change. We're moving toward being able to have a Texas currency, one that's backed by precious metals in deposit in our own gold depository. I mean, this is huge. It's huge. And so everyone, and I'm not saying that is the optimal solution for a currency. I've said it time and time again. I am not a monetary policy guy, right? But I got to tell you, given where the federal system is and what's happening with its currency, the sooner we implement this, the better off we're going to be. But I kind of like the fact that we're probably on a 2-year timetable, because it dovetails in quite nicely with what we could. I mean, can you imagine if we by 2027 end up with a precious metals backed currency, and that same year the legislature passes legislation authorizing a vote on independence? Imagine kind of the synergy that happens. I mean, just imagine kind of that push. And, let's say we go in and we got, 15, 20 new reps in the House and a few senators that are ready to see Texas become independent. And if we see this trajectory that we're seeing with the federal system and where it's headed, man, I mean, you want to talk about just the perfect kind of timing. It'd just be a beautiful thing. But anyway, thank you for that question, Brenda. I really do appreciate it. That's where it is, right? It's like I said, I haven't checked, but has the governor signed it yet? I don't know. Somebody will look and sound off in the chat. If he has, I haven't seen it yet. Okay. Hey, thank you very much, Lori, for your super chat. Really do appreciate it, man. You guys are definitely bearing this out. I mean, we have made a bet on content that you guys want more of it. We collected feedback on what you want. Excuse me. And you guys are stepping up to support it, and really do appreciate that. Thank you so much, Lori. All right. Let us find what we find here. Okay. Okay. Here's a comment that was sent by Terry. This is about, he wanted to sound off on the Texas News podcast episode where I interviewed Jack Miller, and I talked about it last week. He says, thanks for posting this. The plight of the Boer farmers has been going on for years. Hang on, let me try to say it like Jack. The Boers. There we go. The plight of the Boer farmers has been going on for years with no media coverage. They suffer not ordinary murders, but torture, rape, burning alive. Boers would be an asset to Texas in many ways, and they should be encouraged to settle here. Thank you very much. Anyway, thank you for that comment, Terry. Really do appreciate it. A reminder, if you're just now joining us, we're at the midway point. You can drop your questions in the chat on YouTube, in the chat, video chat on X, and you can drop it in the comments on the video on Facebook. And you know, I'll see them. They'll show up over here, and things will happen. Okay, let's look here. Yep, so I knew it. Sam Kemp, he says the governor has not signed the transactional gold bill as of this afternoon. So thank you for that, Sam. You saved me time from having to research it when this was all said and done. Okay, let's take a look here. Yeah, I'm taking it. Buddy wants to know, will gravity still work after Texit? That's a great question. I can't tell you. After Texit, I can't tell you. Will it work during Texit? Absolutely. But, you know, it says all political power is inherent in the people. It doesn't say all laws of physics are inherent in the people. Some things just are, right? I know you did that as a joke, but I had to put it up there. Thanks, buddy. Okay, let's get over here to some additional questions. Do you know the case State of Texas versus Republic of Texas? I do not know specifically what you're talking about. You know, let me know more, and maybe we can sound off on it. I can remember when Dan Morales was Attorney General and went after the Republic of Texas, and didn't work out so well for him. You know, in the end, it's funny. Dan Morales was the guy who wound up in jail, which is, the irony does not escape me. But that is a whole topic for another time. Thank you for that question. Hector says, hailing from Hermosillo, Sonora, Daniel, last Sunday we lost the judicial power to the one-party regime in Mexico. We're cooked. Yeah, you know, Hector, man, thanks for reaching out. You know, this is one of the things that I think has been kind of interesting about some of the interviews that we have done. Is, you know, there were people that, until we did the Jack Miller interview, people that did not know about what was going on in the Western Cape. You know, we've had, I was recounting it the other day. So we've had Carla Garrick from New Hampshire, new in NHX it now. We've had Marcus Ruiz Evans from Cal Exit. We have had now Jack Miller from Cape Independence Party, and we've got others on deck. We're working on some. I'm not gonna spoil it, but we've got some others. I mean, obviously we've had some overseas folks, but we've got others coming. And the one that shocks everyone is the fact that there are independence movements in Mexico, right? That there are states of Mexico that want to break. As a matter of fact, when we announced our support and it got picked up by the media, this guy's kid over at San Antonio Current acted like we were making the crap up, like there was no independence movements. And you know, we're working out the scheduling, but we're going to be interviewing one of the public officials from one of the states in Mexico that is working on a referendum for independence. So, but you know, I don't know how I'm going to break it to the guy that this kid from the San Antonio Current News says he doesn't exist. I guess we're just going to have a conversation with a ghost, maybe. I mean, I don't know. It's going to be fun. But anyway, thanks for sharing that with us, Hector. Okay. Oh yeah, and I did not mention you can also email your questions to it's down there at the bottom. coffeetalk@vtnm.org. Yep, there it is. There we go. Hey, this is weird. I just realized something. The tickers are different. Yeah. Yeah, the tickers are different. Wow. Okay. Sorry. Things happen. I get fascinated by weird things. Okay, new channel member, Descartes Droid. And see, notice I pronounced it correctly because I know who Descartes is. So there you go. Descartes Droid is now a member of our channel. It's got a channel membership. Thank you so much for that. So, seriously, I mean, we're going to wind up having a go to 2 slides or get really tiny print on the slide for all of our channel members. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's right here. Yeah, just go to our channel, look for that arrow, and you'll be able to see. Or it's probably a way to do it on the video. You know, I didn't even think about that. Hey, real quick before we move on to some additional questions, a big congratulations. I talked about this last week, but a big congratulations to the newest county level group in the TNM, Cherokee County. It was Tuesday night. Nate Smith, Executive Vice President, Chief of Staff, Daphne Armour, went there to Cherokee County along with a chunk of the organizational development team to kick off, to have the launch for TNM Cherokee County. And so congratulations to the team. There's a picture of Nate handing them their certificate, certifying them, and awarding them their flag that was flown over the Capitol for them, to carry that banner. But there is your team in Cherokee County. So congratulations to these folks for stepping up and saying, you know what? I am not content to let things be as they are. I'm going to do what I can to help organize and to make it happen. And so congratulations to you guys, Cherokee County, and thanks to Nate and Daphne for heading out there and talking to those folks. Okay, let's get back over here. This is funny. I don't know if Hector's laughing about me doing his comment or not. I don't know, but yes, congratulations. Okay, here's a question. Ray says, if we become independent, what about the border situation? We have a nasty neighbor. If we become independent, no more federal help, etc. It's another big problem. Well, so when, not if, right? When we become independent, we will have better control over our border situation. Look, you're one election away from being exactly where we were before or worse with the border, because that's the federal system. If Texas, as an independent nation, wants to shut down that border, it has absolutely every right and the ability to do so as a self-governing independent nation. Instead of having to do these flea flicker tricks to go send our DPS guys down there to do whatever, right? Every sovereign nation by right has the ability to set its own border and immigration policy. And the fact that the federal government continues to usurp and exacerbate that situation tells you, I mean, people can talk about, well, fentanyl traffic is down like 98%. Well, yeah, I'm glad. But understand, we are still one election at the federal level away from that number being worse than it was before. And if you think that's crazy, look at all of the things that we have been promised. That if people voted a certain way in November, all these things were going to change. Government was going to shrink. There would be no more deficit spending. The debt would be addressed significantly. And that all this like, well, we're going to get rid of the Department of Education. Well, what they're doing is they're wrapping its functions into other departments. They're dismantling it and moving it into other departments. This is the old shell game, right? And so, you're one election away from having the border just as bad as it was before. We have a nasty neighbor. I agree with that statement. That nasty neighbor is called Washington, D.C., the federal system, right? The U.S. is the nasty neighbor. The U.S. federal government is the nasty neighbor. Now, granted, Mexico has its issues, and it too can be a nasty neighbor, especially with that central government in Mexico City. But if you think that those two are not colluding hand in hand, the Mexican federales and the American federales, then you're not seeing the bigger picture here. I mean, the bottom line is that the only way we're ever going to get control of that situation is for Texas to become a self-governing independent nation. You say, if we become independent, no more federal help. Well, when we become independent, we won't need any federal help. We don't need it now because their kind of help means that we overpay these guys about $160 billion every single solitary year, right? Or, their kind of help means that our children's children will be fiscal slaves off of that federal debt. That's the kind of help they offer, right? They don't do anything except take from our substance. And then they pretend like they're doing us this great deal when every single penny they get, it either comes from our pocket or is borrowed under our children's name. They don't bring anything to the table. People say, well, they defend us. They defend us with the people that we send to them from our states, using equipment that is bought and paid for with our money or our debt that they're putting in our name. It's amazing to me that sometimes people look at this and say, look, oh man, the federal government does so much for, where do you think they get this bloody money? Well, first and foremost, they get it from the printing machine, right? Which is why it becomes worth less and less and less because they can't find the off switch. And then they borrow and they borrow and they borrow and they saturate us and hit us with a tsunami of debt. I mean, it's what they do. That is their thing. And then, and I've said this before, maybe you haven't heard it before, and some of you that have heard it before, you're going to be sick of it, but I'm just going to say it. That statement right there is like going to the doctor pulling all of the blood out of your body, spilling about 40% on the floor, pumping the rest back into your body and saying, there, you wouldn't be alive without me. That's the relationship that we have with the federal system. When we have Snowpocalypse 2021, a once in 100-year crisis, right? Where we have all these, it's a major kind of deal. They want us to come begging and pleading for help from FEMA when we got people bailing each other out during Harvey and we're helping everybody out, but they want us to come grovel and beg at their feet for them to give us a slight crumb of the amount that we have overpaid into their stupid system for decades. No, the big problem is that we have too many Texans that are members that are part of an abusive relationship with the federal government and do not recognize how abusive that relationship is. That's part of the problem. The fact that we would even have anyone when we would say, look, it's a reminder the federal government's not fixable. Well, our government's not any better. Well, at least you can do something about it here. Hey, you got Stockholm syndrome, right? I mean, you're going to be, and I'm not talking about you, Ray. I'm not talking about you particularly. I'm talking sort of these metaphorical kind of these people that are out there. But they're going to be dressing like Patty Hearst and helping rob banks before it's all over with, right? That's just the biggest challenge we have to overcome. And I've said this before, right? When we first started the TNM, the biggest enemy that we had was a lack of self-respect on the part of Texas, the belief from Texans that it was even possible. Now that they know it's possible, most do. I mean, you got some out there that still say, well, we'd never make it as an independent nation. And I would say we need to go get those people a CAT scan because I'm pretty sure they've had a head injury undiagnosed. But, and then we shift and it's like the biggest opposition, the biggest issue that we face right now, or at the time, after that was really sort of the federal system, right? The federal gimme system. But now we're into a different phase where I think the people of Texas and a lack of understanding of how their government works is one of the most serious obstacles that we face. So many people don't even understand that, and it's telling when people say, well, our government here is not any better, right? So what you're saying is you would rather have two slave masters instead of just one, right? You want to have two barriers instead of just one, right? You want twice the trouble instead of half the trouble, right? You want to have to divide your focus between attacks from the federal government and ineptitude and incompetence from Austin, right? Peel one layer of the onion. I heard, a guy that I knew that's been in the TNM, involved in the TNM for years, Chuck Thomas, talked about that. People would say to him, well, the government here is no better. He's like, okay, what if you got three layers to an onion and the onion's the problem, how about getting rid of one of those layers? Get rid of one of the layers of the onion, right? How many layers of government do you want? Right? How many layers of government do you want? And if that answer is less than the current, then you start with the federal system and peel it off, and now you have one less layer of government that you have to worry about. And I'm going to tell you, and I pray that some of you listen, because I've said it over and over, you got to understand something, is that Austin is as bad as it is because too much attention is paid to what's happening in Washington, D.C. by Texans. You got people right now that are so vested in Elon Musk and Donald Trump having a pissing match on X, which is hilarious, right? Because, for a lot of reasons. But they're in this match and they're yeah to each other, right? They are so invested in that they probably could not even tell you that the session gabbled out in Austin, nor how their liberties were curtailed or hampered in the last 140 plus days. They probably couldn't tell you. I guarantee you there are people out there right now that are so sunk in to what's happening at the federal level, they probably still think Dade Phelan is the Speaker of the Texas House. And just so you understand, that's not a made-up thing. I know that to be a fact. You see, I get emails from people, a lot of emails from people, a lot of emails complaining about things. And so I know what I just said is not hyperbole. It's not, I wasn't just trying to make a point. It's legitimate truth. And so if we were to focus our efforts here and cut out all the distraction, understand this is happening and we have to get out of it. But instead of concentrating on the walls that are closing in, how about we concentrate on the escape hatch? How are we going to get out of the room? Because I'm going to tell you this, you can't fix Washington, D.C. The federal government is unfixable. The sooner people come to grips with that, the better off they will be. Now, when you come to internalize that and realize that, you got two options. Get out or curl up in a ball and get absolutely smothered and suffocated by what is going to happen with that federal government. You give up or you get out. That's what you do. And what you have is you have a Texas legislature that is blocking your escape hatch. Well, if you were in a room and there's a hatch at the top and there's a ladder to get up to it, and they start filling the room up full of water and it's up to here, and you start trying to climb up the ladder and somebody was blocking your escape from a room that's filling up with water, what would you do? Would you just go, oh, man, it really sucks that guy's in my way. If only they weren't in my way, we could get out. Oh, I just give up. Would you just sit there and drown? Is that what you do? Well, I'm telling you, you've got a way to replace those people. But it's going to take some effort. It's going to take some work, or you are going to drown. Now, the drowning part's a metaphor, right? There's no actual water rising, okay? All right. Thanks for that, Ray. I kind of needed that. All right, Chris. Hey, thank you so much for your super chat. He says, we are one election away from freedom. God bless Texas. Let's roll. And that's the way to look at it. You're one election away from things, one federal election away from things being just as bad as they are before, or you're one election away from being right there at the cusp of Texas becoming independent and not having to worry about federal elections anymore. I mean, wouldn't that be lovely, right? That all that federal stuff just becomes noise. Like we don't care, right? That, it's like the drama in another country, right? Wouldn't that be lovely? It's kind of like when we watch videos of Eastern European parliaments and they start having throwdown fistfights, and we look at it and laugh and go, man, at least that's not us, right? I mean, wouldn't that be lovely to have that sort of attitude toward the clown show in Washington, D.C.? But to do that, we got to deal with our own clown show right here in Texas. And that starts in your own backyard. You have a rep and you have a senator, and if they are not supporting and advocating for your right to vote on Texas becoming an independent nation, or they're not advocating for policies that make Texas more operationally and structurally like a self-governing independent nation, then they cannot be your representatives. You have to replace them. That's just the reality of it. Anyway, Chris, thank you so much for that super chat. I really do appreciate it. Okay. Let's do a little pass through here, because Laughs often says 2 things I think of: being out of the unconstitutional Federal Reserve Act, and 2, Austin politicians have to live within Texas, so within reach. That it's absolutely the truth, and it's the best way to look at it. My dad had kind of a philosophy that the best politician was the one that it was the shortest distance to drive to put a metaphorical boot in their backside if they did not listen. Unfortunately, I don't know that he ever saw that fully realized in his lifetime. I don't think he really actualized that, but he did care about state elections. Because I can remember as a kid putting out campaign signs with him, but there was always this federal thing in the background. This federal thing sort of consumed all the oxygen in the room. And look, I get it. I don't want you to think I'm being overly critical. Some people may accuse me of being overly critical about this. Different people are at different stages of their journey on this thing. I have left that federal bus way behind a long time ago. Right. And so I get it. Some people may think that I'm being hypercritical, but I promise you, I am not being hypercritical. I acknowledge that some of you are at a different stage of your journey. You haven't fully realized how bad Washington, D.C. is. You will. And I pray it sooner rather than later, because if it's later, that means the circumstances become very dire. But if you do a 20-year retrospective. I mean, I've been at this since August of 1996. I mean, I've seen a lot. Next year, I'll have been at this for 30 years. A lot of things have changed in those 30 years, and not for the better. The one thing that is the one stat that is the bright and shining light out of an absolute dumpster fire of federal statistics. The one bright and shining light is the growth in support for Texas independence. That is the bright and shining light, because that means that people are figuring out, people are listening. We've gone from talking to a room. I can remember driving from Longview to Lubbock to talk to one person. We're supposed to have a meeting, and one person showed up years and years and years. I can remember that. And to see where we were then to where we are now, and to see the poll numbers then to where they are now, that is the bright and shining light. That is the hope for the future. It just is. So, what you're saying there, Laughs often, is absolutely the truth. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, being out from under the Federal Reserve is just, there's so many benefits to Texas independence. I mean, it's like, why even argue it? The upside is that we don't have to. We don't have to debate. It's not the time for that. The time for that is later. The time now is for us to go find the people that believe like we do, plug them into the organized effort, educate and activate them, and turn them out there to help us go find our people. More people that are already our people. We've seen the poll numbers. We know that our people are out there, and it's got to be you that helps get them, because let's face it, we have to contend with all the time all of this big tech censorship nonsense. I mean, it's just the reality of it. Okay, friends. Let's do this. Let me take one more pass over here. Hey, thank you to all of our super chatters and new channel members tonight. You guys have made this a pretty amazing night. I don't know for a fact, but this may be one of the best nights that we've had for donors on this channel, and I thank you so much for that. Okay, yeah, so that's what we got. So I think we have cleared the board tonight, my friends. So let us do this. Let me go through here, and a few reminders. A big thank you to our channel members that we had when we came in, but that's obviously a larger number now. Thank you to all of you that have done that. If any of you are wondering exactly what I'm talking about, I will show you one final time tonight. Just go to our channel, hit that button. Yours won't say see perks. Mine does, because I'm already a member, so I get to see the perks, but you get the point. So that's how you become a channel member. But as always, a reminder, if you have not already pledged your support, head over to tnm.me/vote and register your support today. Not only do you get plugged into our email list, but you get a side account and can log into TNM Social, which is the internal social network that is not obstructed by big tech censorship, just exclusively for TNM supporters. And of course, when you do that, you get access to the TNM mobile app. You can download that at tnm.me/app. And again, it gives you an opportunity to connect with other people who believe, like you do, that Texas should become a self-governing independent nation. We get you plugged into groups for your county, for your House district, for your Senate district. You got a lot of opportunities over there. So take advantage of it. Register your support. Download the mobile app today. Additionally, look, if you're not comfortable with super chats and all that kind of nonsense on YouTube, we get it. But that's why we have a donation page. So you can go to donate.tnm.me. Head over there today to make a contribution. Help us keep up the fight for Texas independence. Look, if we can go in and do what we were able to do this session with as little as we had to work with, imagine what would happen if we had the resource to go tear it up. Look, we got something big cooking. I mean, something big in this time between now and the primaries, and we're going to need everyone's support to make this happen. Not just as well-wishers, but we're going to need your financial commitments to make it happen. So, go ahead and get a jump start on that. Head over to donate.tnm.me and make your contribution today. And you know what, friends? I do believe that is a wrap for tonight. So until next time, look, thank you all so very much for your support and what we're doing. I said it earlier in passing, and I really feel like there is a change in the air. Like things felt kind of paused during the legislative session. I'm sure a lot of that is people felt like they were just so let down with the speaker's vote and all those things. But I'm sensing a change in the air, an excitement, kind of a new, like almost like turning the page. And I know each and every one of you are a part of it. Look, we're going to have a lot to talk about on next week's Coffee Talk because I will tell you, I've been prepping something. And so, yeah, send your questions into coffeetalk@tnm.org. But I may wind up eating the whole thing up by talking about various and sundry things that I am preparing for. So just leave it at that. In the meantime, do all the things, right? Get active, understand that the opposition is there, and we got to do something about it. You got to do something about it. No more emails to me going, you know what y'all ought to do. No, you know what we should do, right? And you have to accept your part in that. So that being said, I'm going to leave you with the words I leave you with every time we're together. They're not my words. They're the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now, and the question is, will you stand with her? Good night, everyone.
Well, the people in power, whether red or blue, they could not care less about Texas, me and you. They created this give me country that don't value hard work. For a Texan to survive, all we need are some seeds and dirt. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country, for it's long gone. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country, for it's long gone. We believe in family and we value our community. Gladly lend a helping hand to a neighbor in need. And we don't believe that government should provide for all of society's needs. No, it's the pride of a Texan to give to others voluntarily. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Gotta save your country, for it's long gone. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Gotta save your country, for it's long gone. They like our tax dollars and they love our natural resources. They don't want to see us driving trucks, they'd rather see us riding horses. And now they want to ban our guns, you know, especially the ones that look scary. But may I remind you of the Gonzales Cannon and the Alamo heroes we buried. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save our country, for it's long gone. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save our country, for it's long gone. This last verse is straight from the Texas Constitution, Article 1, Section 1 and 2. Look it up. Texas is an independent state, yet presently we suffer. We no longer possess the right to locally self-govern. And now it's time as a people in which all political power is inherent. And in such manner we find expedient, we reform or abolish our government. I said, Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country, for it's long gone. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country, for it's long gone.